Hello and welcome to the Books Crypto Club weekly catch-up on Zoom. It is Sunday, the 27th of November 2022. And this week, we're going to be talking about whatever people who show up want to talk about, really. Some weeks we talk about crypto, blockchain, DeFi, NFTs, ICOs, TGs, any other three-letter acronym, really, in this crazy crypto world. We hold these sessions every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. UK time, and everyone's welcome to join, novice and expert alike. There's a link in the comments below, so do come and join us for a future session if you're a novice, you'd like to learn more, or you have some basic questions. Or if you're an expert or you're working on a project that you like to promote, come along and say hi. As the YouTubers always say, do click on the subscribe, click on the like, make comments, but importantly, come along to a future session. Anyway, let's see who's going to come and join us today. Hey, Fernando.
Hello.
Hello. Where are you? Where are you on this wonderful day?
In a cab in London.
Ah, okay.
Coming from the airport, Heathrow Airport.
Okay. Are you heading home or are you heading out?
Heading home.
Okay.
Airport. Just arrived in Heathrow and going straight home now.
Okay. Well, hope you had a good trip and safe trip so far.
Yeah, it was a good, I was at the NBX in Berlin.
Which was that? Was that in Barcelona or something?
Berlin.
Berlin. Okay.
Yeah.
Any good news from that then that you can share with us?
Well, quite a few things, it looks like more people in Germany are still continuing to be very active, in crypto, blockchain. There was about 1,000, I would say 1,500 or 1,700 people, so not bad at all,
Okay.
So that for me was quite surprising because I was going for a couple of meetings, but then I understood as soon as I arrived there, I understood straight away, it seems that these guys weren't very much affected, That's what it looks like.
Okay.
Because there was quite a, I was even surprised for some of the changes were there. So for example, Minima, I saw Adam there from Minima, and I think those guys are doing some good stuff now. They will have basically you can run a node on your phone, and the way they implemented that blockchain is very different than the others. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it, but I suggest you whoever get it.
Okay, well, you are breaking up quite a lot at the moment anyway, so...
Yeah, I'm on the taxi, so I'm sorry for that.
No, that's much better. That's good. So, was that Minima, did you say?
Minima, yeah. And I think we're going to go to mainnet in February
okay.
With about 1 million nodes. It's quite impressive.
Wow.
Yeah.
Exactly. Were Cardano at Berlin as well?
No, Cardano wasn't. So it was Minima and Aleph Zero.
Okay.
Those were the two, because Aleph Zero, majority of them are Polish. The HQ is in Switzerland, and they have a team in Switzerland and so on. But I think the dev and security are in Poland. And they had a big presence there, quite a big presence. Okay. So I was surprised as well. But I guess the organizers of the conference are half Polish, half German, so maybe it was not such a surprise.
Okay, I was just pulling the website up for Aleph Zero while you were talking as well, because they seem to have a lot of names on the website, which suggests that it might be doing well, or it might be just that they're putting up a lot of things there. You look at these, where it says that all the features they've had some quite high-profile presentations, which is great.
Yes, I mean these guys are really good.
Okay.
Here, please. I'm sorry. I'm just dropping off the taxi, so I'm gonna go for a bit. Okay.
Okay, so Aleph Zero definitely want to watch out for then. And you say that they're going to have 1 million nodes. Yeah. Okay, so I guess Fernando's paying his cab.
Aleph Zero is not 1 million nodes. Minima is 1 million nodes.
Minima. Okay. Okay, we can check into that shortly. I'll say hello to Alina anyway. Hi, Alina. Haven't forgotten you.
Good evening.
Hey. You just joined in the call as Fernando's just traveling back from Heathrow after being out in Berlin. And he was just talking about the scene out in Germany with crypto and how active it is at the moment. So pretty interesting to hear. I think this is sometimes if you're in the UK, you forget that there are other things going on in other countries as well. So, hey, Bill, what's joined us as well? Is Bill going to come off mute? And Christian's joining as well. See, hey, Christian. Everyone, I couldn't just about hear you. You're a little bit broken up at the moment, Bill.
Would you pop on the mic?
That was better.
Oh, okay, cool. So I'll move away this way. Probably work better.
Excellent. Okay, that's good. And Christian, hi. Can you hear us? Okay.
Yes, I can. Good evening.
Hey there. Hey, good to have a couple of fresh faces on for a change. Then that's good. We were just talking about the general crypto and blockchain scene. Fernando's just come back from Germany. He's saying, you say there was 1,500 visitors at the events, Fernando? Or I think he's busy paying his taxi driver at the moment, so he can't reply. But he was talking about a couple of blockchain projects around.
Yeah, it was NBX Berlin.
MBX, okay.
No, NBX, next blockchain or something, NBX.
Okay.
Sorry, so I'll be back in 5 minutes, okay? I'm just gonna
that. Go and pack your bags. No problem. So what's new then, folks? Anything of interest with the rest of you? Christian, what are you up to of late? Anything good fun?
Nothing crypto related. No, it's been very dormant for me.
I think there are a few people who are letting crypto take a bit of a backseat as they figure out what's going on with the wider world, really, in some ways. I don't know, Bill, is that the same for you? Are you looking at what's going on with the general economy and that kind of thing rather than crypto?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a crazy, amazing time, isn't it, really? I mean, I suppose our whole world's been shocked into a new vision, really, of what's going on. So it's very easy to get bogged down into the nitty-gritty that's going on regarding the economy. And it's also very interesting to see what's going on. So it's very time-consuming. But I am in crypto. I'm still in crypto. Not put up by crypto. I've got a few things going on, but yeah. But I suppose I'm really disappointed with the way the governments are acting and the banks are acting. So that's really where my time's been spent and educating myself as to what's going on.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good point. If you look at, I've seen a number of messages from banks to customers lately, certainly in the UK, from the likes of Santander, saying that they're either rejecting crypto payments in total, or they're refusing transactions above, I think it's €1,000. So they're certainly putting the pressure on and restricting the use in some way.
It's interesting because if you go back a few years, we had that situation where debit cards were completely removed from the space. Remember?
Yeah.
Like in respect of crypto being a moving exchange. Then it seems to have quietened down, probably because the banks were getting involved and obviously they would have to be relying on systems like that. But in the recent weeks or months, there's been a lot of chatter going on, or more chatter than normal. So there are certain banks that are definitely being earmarked of being not friendly. Yeah. Obviously, there's a two-way process there. It's obviously going in and going out. So which way is actually pissing them off, really? So there are certain bank names that came to me probably the last few weeks where they were basically recognised as being a bit difficult to play with. Yeah. But I think there's a lot more going on besides that, really. I mean, there's such a lot of noise. Between the traditional markets and the crypto markets, and we've heard this word, the phrase, the everything bubble. Yeah, but I find a safe place for the money. So when the crypto market moved like it did, there was a lot of panic. I wasn't particularly panicked because I'm sitting and holding. Yeah, and I wasn't really taking part in the melee of crypto that's out there. But certainly there's some blood in the streets. I mean, the FTT, was it FTX or FTC?
FTX is the exchange, FTT is the token.
Really, I mean, we could spend all evenings talking about that, but that's an example of what can go wrong. And it's really given ammunition to the regulators, isn't it, really?
Well, you're right in some ways that it gives them more of an excuse to get involved. But it's interesting if you look at the FTX, the new CEO, who's the chief recovery officer, who's been kind of parachuted in to sort out the mess and look at how he can recover assets and that kind of thing. This is a guy who wrote, I think it was a 34-page report, but very, very quickly. He posted it in like under 10 days. And this is a guy who's ex-Enron. So he was in the middle of the Enron collapse and he's been involved in anything. And you read his report and it basically says this is the worst ever organization I've ever seen in terms of governance, control, processes and that. But he hardly really mentioned crypto. It was basic failings of governments, of management, of control, of processes. It didn't matter that it was crypto. But the regulators won't see it that way. The regulators will see it as a crypto company that's failed. And so they'll want to regulate crypto.
Well, yeah, they just...
Sorry, and so does it mean that the failure was inevitable?
Well, the failure depends which angle you come from on it. A lot of people are saying that it was effectively criminal activity that was going on, or certainly that the activities that were undertaking were criminal in their nature. The way that money was being transferred from customer funds out to a third party, allegedly, the way that there was some massive donations being transferred out to Ukraine and then back. It smacks that if these are true, then it was a massive criminal enterprise. Mm-hmm. And criminal enterprises, if they're well run, tend to last quite a long time. So maybe it was that. The other angle is that it was a level of incompetence beyond belief. And it was the result of inexperienced people in senior positions not being serious enough. And certainly if you look at some of the interviews that some of the executives had, you know, it was questionable about whether they had the experience necessary to run an organization of that complexity and size. But my experience is that companies become complex, usually through intent and necessity. And if you look at their organization structure, I think it's something like 137 different entities are all linked to each other. That's a massive thing to keep track of. Mm-hmm. So I think in some ways it might have been inevitable simply because it was papering over the various problems it was having by just becoming more and more complex. We'll see. It'd be interesting to read the final reports when they come out.
It is interesting though, because if you take, well, when the information started to come through the various news outlets, there was obviously versions of events, if you like, yeah, and reports and all kinds of things. And initially, my thought was, well, I've got to be careful here because we need to make sure the story that's coming out is actually the right story. And it looked like, and initially, it looked like it could be a bit of a funny one. But as the data and information started to get shared out through various channels, more and more evidence came to light, particularly around how the money or the crypto was being moved around, and where it ended up going and who was involved and how many, some of these people involved are highly influential, and there's particular focus on one of the people working for a company. I can't remember her name now, but she's supposed to be a maths genius or something, And
was that Caroline? She was the CEO of Alameda. Alameda was actually a technically separate company.
Oh, was it?
So that was like an investment advisory firm, something. And one of the problems was that it appears that FTX may have transferred funds to Alameda to support their business in some way, which they shouldn't have done, because it may have been client funds. But as you say, every day I read something, and you have to first of all be comfortable whether it's factual or opinion or whatever. Sometimes you hear things and it's actually an opinion, it's not a fact. But there are definitely more and more things coming out of the woodwork, which just make you think, nah, this was just dodgy as anything. So
it's definitely dodgy. The question is that there are some very interested people that could have actually helped things through. So I think, again, I'm not going to go to the names, but the guy in question, central role, I mean, I think his parents or his father used to be working with the Federal Reserve or something. Mm-hmm. And again, all these, they weren't saying it outright, but they're saying it's possible that these people could have been involved and have used their influence to move them funds around, etc., etc. So it becomes a real mess of information and people writing up newspaper articles online, giving up their own perspective, and then you're thinking, am I reading the right report here to get the clear view of what's really going on? But I mean, I think like you said, that the main issue for us, I suppose, is that this is a stick to beat crypto, when in fact, you know, it's not necessarily the crypto is the problem, it's the people running the company.
That's right. And I think it might have been JP Morgan who put an opinion piece out that effectively said, well, the problem that you're having with, you know, the likes with FTX, with Three Arrows, with all the Celsius and all the other failures are all failures of centralized exchanges.
Yeah.
And so in a way, it was actually arguing that decentralized exchanges are possibly the way forwards. And this was interesting. Again, this is where you need the whole governance piece around it. So there's been a lot of talk in the last week around the concept of proof of reserves, which is for an exchange to hold on-chain evidence of the assets that it holds in some way. And that's now gone live. And so if you go onto the likes of CoinMarket.cap, it actually identifies which companies are now publishing the proof of reserves. But the problem is that's just such a easy number to play around with in some ways that you can't really be too sure, you know, as to whether it is legitimate or not.
More, Gary, if it's not properly audited, it's just a number people put there. You know, I think that's why Jesse Powell came out criticizing this yesterday. You know, there was a story
who's
yesterday.
Jesse Powell? Who's Jesse Powell?
Founder of Kraken.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Kraken is regulated, all that. You know, it tends to be quite straight. Yeah. But he came out and he said it doesn't mean anything unless if you have proper audits. You know, and proper audits means which are the regulated auditing companies. It's very simple.
Which is exactly it. So if anyone does use CoinMarketCap, for example, just quickly sharing with you, you'll see on CoinMarketCap on the exchanges page, there's this little icon now. And they've got it next to Binance where it says exchange reserves data available. So, you know, KuCoin, Bitfinex, and a few others.
It's a good start, don't get me wrong. It's a good start. And I actually, you know, I actually value what they said, and they had a go because Binance owns CoinMarketCap. So they are starting something. Of course, it's going to evolve, you know. Can't just expect in 1 week to have everything there. But, you know, I think it's a good starting point, you know.
Yeah. It's certainly better than nothing. I think the problem is that some people might take it as absolute without really realizing just how easy it is to potentially manipulate it. And so it's one of these unfortunate things. It's like a traffic light system that may make something look good when it actually isn't. So, but we'll see where it goes.
I mean, I've been busy the last few days, obviously. My mum's 80th birthday weekend. It's been crazy for the last few days. So I haven't been following the most recent news. Obviously, I was reading it about over a week ago now. But I mean, in terms of decentralization, obviously, are there versions of decentralization? So who decides the best version of decentralization, what it means and what it undertakes? to get there. So, you know, I think there's a long way to go before everyone's happy. Let's put it that way.
Well, the other thing as well is where you talk decentralization. What do you actually mean by decentralization, and what's the difference between decentralization and distributed? So a lot of blockchain projects are distributed, but have got centralized governance in some way. You know, if it's got a foundation that's running it, then it's centralized. So there is the whole thing about just what does decentralization actually mean? Because I think a lot of the time people think it's decentralized and then they discover it's actually not. So we'll see on that.
We were talking earlier about the Alameda research. Yeah, there's more correction that what it is. Yes, it belongs to FTX, but it's quantitative. Yeah. So
Fernando, we're losing you a bit.
I said Alameda Research is actually a quantitative trading firm. Yeah. So hedge fund basically. Yeah. And mixing a hedge fund with exchange, it's very bad. Yeah. Very, very bad. It should never happen. And it looks like SPF had shortcuts where you could send personally any money you wanted from FTX to Alameda without anybody knowing. Yep. So we find it more and more. I mean, there's all sorts of things coming up at the moment.
Yeah, and it's one of these bizarre things that if the stories about this are true, where they've taken customer deposits on FTX and transferred them to Alameda to make investments in products that the customers on FTX are about to buy, so effectively front running, it's not necessarily even the fact that that's unethical or whatever. It's just how on earth can you lose money doing that? It's a guaranteed win. So how on earth they ended up how they did, I really don't know. So I see we've just been joined by an unfamiliar face. It says Tazes. On it, say hi and introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nicholas Tazes, and I'm joining from Greece.
Hey, welcome aboard. And, I guess Kalispera, is it this time of day? Yep.
Kalispera, that's right.
Great. Well, welcome. We're just chatting about various things at the moment, FTX and the collapse and what's going on with various things around that, certainly. And just a general, if anything's got anything to share, really. I don't know, what brings you along today then, Nicholas?
The only thing I would like to add to the whole FTX fiasco is that we are talking about this whole thing started with a bank run that revealed, let's say, misused, that the funds were being misused. And this can happen literally to any traditional finance institution, like the name is bank run. So this is a possibility that this can happen to traditional finance as well. And it's also a very strong signal that we need to embrace decentralization and the transparency in the financial system.
I think people on here will agree with that, definitely. Yeah. It's a really good point. And it's funny, someone was saying the other day about how, you know, the traditional banking system at the moment is saying, hey, look at these crypto people and the craziness they're causing. And then exactly as you say, you know, where did the word bank run come from? And it was a collapse of a bank. So, yeah.
But it's not just that, yeah. Yes, it was a bank run, but what really highlighted was what they were doing, which is pretty much a scam. They were scamming people. That's all it was, yeah, nothing else. You can't pick up customers' funds, yeah, and then go and leverage on your exchange. I mean, it's just ridiculous, you know. And then hedge funds to hedge against whatever, and plus more than that, they had a flywheel going on. So they were printing FTT. Yeah, they were going to go to a hub, give that as collateral to get USDT. Yeah, use that USDT to buy BTC, print more FTT, go and use both. Yeah, to get collateral and get more, and then send the funds to Alameda and then keep printing FTT continuously. It's like having a central bank printing money, just to do whatever they want. So that with mismanagement of the funds of the people that were depositing the funds, they were just scamming people. They were scamming everyone, basically, So it's not just what brought down actually FTX, and you're going to find more. You guys are going to see. It was not just people doing a run. It was going to happen either way, because they were running out of money. They were trying to print more FTT, but there's not much more they could do because everybody was looking at, I mean, it's all on the chain, with all of those FTT printing for what? And people start to track it and they start to find what they were doing, just printing more and collateralizing it.
But it is, as I was saying before, when you look at, as you say, the money machine they had going in effect, it's almost impossible to not make money the way they were doing that. So how on earth did they end up with a liquidity crunch, which revealed a solvency problem? They should have been just making so much money. It'd be impossible to be insolvent, but somehow they managed it. They must have tried pretty hard to do that. So I don't know if anyone's got any other views on any of that kind of stuff, or whether it's worth exploring anything else that's been going on.
I just have one more thing to say on these.
Yeah.
It's not advice. I never give advice to anyone. It's just my opinion. But I would stay away from everything, at the moment, because if you go back and see, we had Luna, and Terra and all of the stuff that was also with Delphi, and there was it was bad, and then it came, it was right at the beginning of summer, like end of May, June, Those companies, there was a lot of companies around that crash that haven't yet recovered. The market was still trying to recover on a bear market, and that was quite significant. And then it came now FTX. If you look at the number of FTX that are subsidiaries or they own or are dependent, even BCG, I mean, they are giants with Grayscale and everything that they own. And Genesis, even those guys are suffering, we will see a domino effect.
I agree.
I think it's going to be a lot more than what people think was coming next.
And I think that the two things I emphasize to people of lessons learned is, first of all, don't keep your crypto on an exchange, or always transfer it onto your own wallet and have self-custody, which is one thing. And the other thing is be very, very wary. Exactly as you say at the moment, there are so many potential dominoes falling over at the moment that there could be additional things going badly wrong, which probably leads us on to another piece of news, or non-news really, which is around Ripple at the moment. So I don't know if any of you follow what's happening with Ripple and the court case with the SEC as to whether XRP token is a security, whether XRP is a security token or not. The last I heard, a couple of things going on, is that a number of other companies have now filed what are called amicus briefs, which is where they're kind of attaching them to themselves to the case as an interested party. And I'm trying to remember the numbers. I think it's 14 of them submitted their initial things. They have to have them in by the end of the month. But meanwhile, there's a few lawyers who are now suggesting that there might actually be a settlement by the end of this month, but it'll be a settlement. It won't be a judgment in any way. And I've been saying for a while I thought that could happen, because a settlement is where both parties just agree on something. Maybe Ripple takes a minor fine and everything goes away, but there is then no statutes created. There's nothing that can then be reused. Sorry, I've forgotten what the legal term is now. And I think that might happen, because I think the SEC is concerned that if there is a decision made, then that sets a precedent upon which other cases will go. And I don't think it's going in their favour, of the SEC's favour. So I don't think that this precedent would be a good one. So it's worth watching. I think it's on the 30th is when it's being suggested that there might be an announcement. And it's interesting because I think it's Brad Garlinghouse, who's the CEO of Ripple, originally said, we will not accept a settlement. We will not agree to a settlement. We're taking this to the full conclusion to get a decision. I guess there's a point at which it becomes attractive to say enough's enough and walk away. So we'll see what goes on. Because again, that could have a ripple effect on the markets. Because if XRP has decided that it's not a security, then there's going to be a lot of people very happy with that, and the exchanges will open up again. There might be a lot more trading on that. And it removes a lot of the uncertainty as well about the SEC's behavior on things. Whereas if it is declared a security, then people are going to start thinking, which crypto are they going to go after next? Because originally they took I think it was a no action decision against Ethereum a number of years ago. It could then change and that they go after a whole load of others. And the problem is that if the SEC start stating that other things are securities, that means the exchanges will delist them for fear of being involved in trading securities.
But decentralized exchanges won't be affected as much because the pools are created by people.
You're right, and that's where that's one of the good arguments around a DEX or decentralized exchange, that it's more difficult to kind of shut down on that. The problem, because I'm seeing this in the UK with some banks already, is when you try and on-ramp or off-ramp between a decentralized exchange and a bank account. And this is where in the UK, a number of bank accounts that were kind of okay with crypto in the past. You used to be able to pay into like crypto.com or Coinbase or Kraken or Binance or whatever. And they started all of a sudden refusing payments. And these are quite big banks. And it was a mixed message as well. So I spoke to some people who said, they couldn't do any crypto through HSBC, Barclays, Lloyds, and a few others. And then I had other people saying, oh, yeah, I'm using them and don't have any problems. So I don't know, what's the situation in Greece, Nicholas, in terms of dealing in crypto?
Here, the financial system is a bit bad, let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. And they are indeed refusing SEPA transfers to centralized exchanges like Binance. I personally never had a problem because I use N26, which is
it's one of the new neobanks.
Yeah, based in Germany, and it didn't have a problem with that. But I know for a fact that there are a lot of people who have issues transferring money to Binance, for example.
Okay.
The rule that somebody...
You're breaking up again, Fernando.
A rule that somebody gave me, which is do less than 4,999 each time. Mm-hmm. And if you do it above, then you might have problems. That's what I was told, So for small transfers, they don't care. If you start the big transfers, then they'll come to you.
I've seen some things lately where they're suggesting the number's now 1,000 euros before it draws attention, which makes for some people, that's just too small a number you'd have to do so many transfers because they're so active in that space.
I have a comment on what you said about catchup.
Yeah.
So I'm a true believer that what happened with FTX is not so coincidence. Okay, I do not believe for a second, my personal opinion, that it's done by those guys. I don't know.
You're breaking up again.
I don't believe these guys have done it alone. Mm-hmm. Okay, they're too young. SBF didn't even know what crypto was until 2019. He said it himself.
Yep.
So I have no doubt that there was other people behind this, and they're going to use this to justify either to doing many bad things against crypto or putting so big regulations that make everything a security. And the judge and all the people that are around this case are no strangers to all that. They read the news, they are everywhere. This is going to impact on the decision, in my opinion. And I think they will make an example of this. And if it comes out as a security, it satisfies government, satisfies legislators, blah, 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 SEC, and they will use that against crypto. Yeah, that's my personal view. But who knows? They could
I fear that you might be right, because you look at when the big Ponzi scheme in New York many years ago with
Madoff.
Bernie Madoff. I think when they arrested him within 24 hours of him admitting to stuff, and he was prosecuted very, very quickly.
And SBF is still going to talk at the conference in Washington, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. So there's something not quite right there. It's a weird type thing. So we'll see. I think there is a lot more to come out. I think it will have an impact. I don't know what. I do think it will be used to justify further regulation. I think that's a good point, definitely.
It is interesting that, because they're not really parallels, or when you take to say, look at crypto and look at the monetary system we have today, and take money laundering, for example, how it's used to move drugs and stuff like that in the US dollar. It's very easy to pick on crypto, but there's a lot of dirty work going across over there.
Yeah.
So it's a very unfair, in a way, system, because we know the banks and the community doesn't like crypto. So they use any excuse they can to try and discredit it, while at the same time, they've got a broken system that's been broken for a long time. That's obviously fundamentally flawed because of the way it's used. And it's just not, it doesn't really make complete relevance to what we're discussing, but there is a parallel there to think about.
I think you're right, and it is bizarre that you look at a lot of the fraud that's going on through the mainstream fiat banking system at the moment, and it's crypto's tiny in comparison, which is the bizarre thing. But I found it odd as well. There's an interesting group in the UK, which is called the Transparency Task Force. And they're all about trying to improve transparency around the finance world. And they've developed a database of fines that financial institutions have to pay each year. And so they're now collating out, it's worldwide. It's fascinating. And they're hoping that by publishing the fines that all the big banks are paying, that will improve the visibility and transparency, and it'll improve things. But as I pointed out, I can't remember how many billion a year is banks are fined by, but it is in the billions. You go, well, that won't stop, because if you're fining several $1 billion a year, that's going into somebody's pocket as revenue, and it's governments. So it's the governments who are receiving the fines. So all a bank does is, if it sees something dubious, it raises a suspicious activity report, and it carries on. It does the business anyway. So, yeah, I agree.
It's a lot darker than that, Gary. Because they just make it part of their business model, until you actually change the way the whole financial system operates, which is responsibility attached to the senior management with prison sentence, it's not going to change. I mean, they know they are facilitating. Where all the money laundering happens, it happens through London, through the city of London. We all know that, it just goes through that, but they close the eyes. Every government in the world closes the eyes as well. It's just not here in the UK only, but there are no prison sentences. You see, we pay fines, but in the crypto world, anyone who does money laundering goes to prison. We know, we've seen so many, in the banking and financial system, nobody goes to prison.
Yep.
But literally nobody. I challenged a couple of people that I know here in the city, and none of them could tell me a name of a guy that went to prison for money laundering in banks. Yeah, from fraud and a certain type of frauds that they do in the bank. Yeah, there was, do you remember the Icelandic bank, in 2008? Yep. There was a list of about, 18 or 20 guys that went to prison, But in UK, nobody went to prison in 2008, In Germany, a few, in Spain, a few, in Iceland, a few, in UK and US, none.
Yep.
And that's the problem, If they don't attach prison sentences, they will make still part of their business model. They'll pay the fines, and then they'll use and tell exactly like you said, yeah, we pay fines, we've been transparent, and we're publishing that. And what? That's the problem.
But I unfortunately agree with you. Yeah. Okay. Conscious of time, because we've been chatting away about various things, is there anything else anyone would like to chat about this evening that I've come on for in particular? Nicholas, maybe.
Yeah, regarding the banks rejecting our transfers, we talked about earlier. I feel like when they reject the transfer, they are violating my freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the alternative would be to convert my euros to a stable coin. But the biggest stable coins right now, let's say USDT, USDC, and BUSD, are heavily centralized.
Yep.
So if I have to choose between Euro and USDC, I would choose Euro.
Mm.
So maybe if we had a fully decentralized stable coin, similar to what DAI wanted to make, I think that will be a very huge step toward the the more transparent, the more free world we are trying to make.
I think that's a really good point, because I always point out to people, well, whether you're talking about decentralization or centralization, the critical point is always getting it into that world or out of that world, which is one of the benefits that if you go into a stable coin, you're now in the crypto world and you don't have to exit again. But the stable coins, well, they have enough stories about them alone to create concern. But you're right that they're not usually decentralized in any way. They are very much centralized control. Yeah, we need a truly decentralized store of value and transfer of value.
That's what they try to do with UST, and we know where they end up. Huh? So it's very hard, that when people ask me about which stable, I can tell everyone to do a little bit of homework. You'll find that USDT and actually BUSD, a lot of the collateral is actually on US bonds, which is giving them 3%, which is not bad at all. You can't go wrong with that, unless if the US runs fools everyone. Yeah, I mean, that's a different thing if you trust them or not. But if you start to look exactly where the collateral is, you will find them everywhere in bonds. Actually, I'm lying. I think they have about 60 or 65% in bonds, and then distributed across, I think, 85 banks.
Right.
So it is there. It's available if you really want to look at. You don't need to trust them. Just go and do a bit of research, and you'll find. Now USDC, I don't know, because to be honest, I start to look at that once I heard those things about Circle and Coinbase, and there's still an investigation on Coinbase about the collateral isn't there. So I don't know what's the full story anymore, So I can't comment about USDC. Yeah.
It's kind of like where we're saying about proof of reserves, the exchanges. You need the equivalent for stable coins. If they're stabilized and collateralized against an underlying asset, then you need the evidence that that asset really is there. Nicholas, I thought you were going to say something on that.
Yeah, but my main point is that if Circle, the issuer of USDC, can blacklist, bless you, if Circle can blacklist your address and can reject your transfer, like what the Tether did with the hacker of FTX, they blacklisted their addresses. So I don't care what is your reserves, what do you have. I care that you can literally take my money.
That's absolutely true. They can do that, and that's the bit that we I mean, people shouldn't really allow, and should everyone should change to the next. In my opinion, so I agree with you. In my opinion, everybody should change to the next stable coin that is truly reliable. But it's very hard to do one, no? Because if you're going to do one, you have to rely on smart contracts, and smart contracts are hacked, often, and etc. etc. So it will be very, very hard, in my opinion. And we can't have really I'm not saying it's impossible, yeah. I'm just saying it's going to be hard, and having big support behind it after what happened in the West. That's what
I guess you get the other problem as well, and this is where you get the challenge of crypto hitting the fiat legislation and regulations. So things like anti-money laundering and source of funds and this kind of stuff. Because I agree, Nicholas, it's a really good point that we think about whether it's whether you're using USDT or something, whether it's collateralized or not. It's more in terms of can it be switched off or stopped from being used in some ways. So it's the whole censorship resistance piece, which is really important, that you want a decentralized world for that to not happen. But if the funds are coming from a sanctioned country or somebody who's on a sanctions list or is a politically exposed person, or it's obviously from criminal activity in there, you kind of need that kind of ability to block it simply in order to make sure that you're not breaking the law. This is where you go down the route of which law do you use in the decentralized world.
Yeah, but right, if you really think well, stable. If you really want to have a cryptocurrency, like
you're breaking up again.
You just go for Bitcoin. Yeah, why are people? Stables were created so you can actually get out of one and go to fiat and change and do all of this stuff, not just stay on stables. It was just a means for you to go from one to the other. Yeah, exit and go to another one. Now people got used to, it is where I park my money, when I don't want to trade or I wait for markets to go down and then I go in again. So, and then of course people get exposed. Otherwise, just get on Bitcoin, yeah, get out your wallet, put your wallet somewhere and don't worry about it. Nobody will be able to take your money ever. If you leave it on stable, unfortunately they can stop you, yeah, and they will continue. The reason why I'm saying that, if you look at MiCA, yeah, and all the regulations coming on the European Union, two things that they are focusing very hard is on actually regulations on stables and regulations, three actually, regulation on stables, on exchanges and custodial. Yeah, custodian. Those three things are going to be heavily regulated in Europe, and I think it's a good thing to have anyone that actually issues a stable coin to be highly regulated, because then it exposes exactly that. The downside is, like you said, yeah, they can stop and take your money whenever they want. That's the downside.
Yeah. It's a difficult balance, isn't it? Sorry, Nicholas, were you going to say on that?
It's a very good point. I mean, we should be able to stop this kind of acts, transferring money for a bad purpose, let's say. But in the name of protection, we've seen that the centralized entities are taking advantage of these laws. And in the name of safety and protecting us, they're starting to take our freedom.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we are in a point where we should discuss whether financial sanctions should be a thing, because we saw with Russia, for example, that they didn't hurt them as much as we wanted.
Yeah.
And they mainly hurt everyday people, not the government.
Mm.
So it's a very big discussion, and I don't think that we are going to end up with a conclusion straight up forward.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that these are all things that we need to consider as you develop a new economic system, and you suddenly discover these things that you didn't think were an issue, or you thought, oh, why do they bother with that, and all this kind of thing. But I think you're right that in some ways they are also using regulations to reduce the usage of some things and make it difficult. But that said, there's been some new regulation introduced, certainly around Europe, around payments, not crypto payments, but just traditional payments, with what's called PSD2. So Payment Services Directive applies across the EU, about payment service providers and how they handle debit cards and credit cards, and the amount of additional security that you now have to go through. That has been such a complete and utter pain that I tried to buy, I don't know, it was Roblox vouchers or something for a computer game the other day. And it's almost impossible to buy and sell stuff legitimately for small transaction values using a debit card. And it's simply that they've made it so difficult. It's almost impossible. So maybe it's not that they're picking on crypto. It's just that they're making payments so difficult, full stop.
I'm just thinking, listening to you there, about obviously the next step, which is probably, I know we're probably running out of time here, but maybe another time. It seems to me that CBDC is seriously, and it's going to be coming soon. So a lot of what we discuss kind of funnels into that, yeah? Because obviously the aim of that is to take a bit, I suppose, more control of currency, really, yeah? And how it's spent and how it's ever seen. So if they really wanted to clamp down on dodgy stuff and oversight, then they could do it through that method.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that I can understand why some people are really worried about CBDCs, because they offer the potential for the government to completely control how money is used and by whom and when. So removes all the freedoms in there. And it's one of those difficult things that you could go down the route of, well, if I'm an innocent individual not doing anything wrong, then do I really care that they could potentially do stuff? Because they're not going to do it to me because I'm a good person. But that doesn't hold. I know that that's not feasible, because over time, governments change, attitudes change, and what might be considered acceptable behavior and practice now may not be by a future government, or they might want to apply a certain influence. So we've all seen what's gone in China with the social ranking index, linking that into the payment thing, and everyone's saying we don't want to go there. So yeah, it's one of these double-edged swords, isn't it, or one of many, that there are some potentially really good things that could happen with central bank currencies, but equally you can see the risks that they impose, and I can see why the libertarians are getting so worried.
Well, it's interesting because there's an article that came out, which was, I think, published by government or some of the people they use, and they were putting a question to government about how much, I suppose, control or tracking could be integrated into that technology. And the very fact that question is being asked at all,
yeah,
maybe feel concerning to some people. I mean, to give a silly example, which is completely unrelated to that, if you were making money from the bookies, which is cash normally, yeah, do you want to go to the point of where it all becomes digital, so every single penny is accounted for, yeah, digitally? There's no middle ground, is there?
Yeah, it's one of those things that you could argue, well, actually, because CBDCs could be programmable.
That's
Then
what I was using. That's what I saw on the.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe that's a conversation for a future session. I'm mindful we're kind of out of time now. The hour's flown by. But I'm going to have to close it down there because we are out of time. But thank you, everyone who came along today. Nicholas, great to see you. Hope to see you again sometime. Elena, nice to see you. As always, Bill, thanks for joining us. Thanks. Fernando, welcome back to the UK. Right, folks, have a great week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.